What are we doing? Check, check. Oh, there's my clapper. Good morning. 4:42. We're here. We made it. First off, thank you for anyone who watched the last episode, whatever it was. I liked it, and then immediately upon releasing it, I second-guessed a lot of it. I'm sure half the people who viewed it last time were people that I physically sent the episode to. We're going to do a shout out to Nick Coons, another band that I was in that I forgot about during the thing, but it was more specifically not that I forgot about it, it was that I was following this trajectory of where that guitar came from. That's why I jumped from 2001 or whatever it was to 2006, and then jumped again from there to like the band that we played that guitar in. But was also in a band called Endless Days. It was also a fun band with Nick Coons and Nick, the other Nick from Fatebringer and Future Wolf and whatever other little projects we've done. Anyway, there's that one. And then I don't know if I've actually been in any other bands, so that'll just cover all of them. If anybody else remembers me being in a band that I was in and I don't remember saying anything, then let me know in the comments or whatever if you watch this. But yes, thank you. And I appreciate the people who reached out to me saying that they enjoyed seeing my video, that they felt like they were in the room with me. That's kind of the vibe that I was going for, and will, at least for now, continue to be going for. I want it to sound good. I want it to make sense to people watching it. I also don't want it to be overproduced, whatever that means. I want it to feel personable. That's really what it is. The people who said that it felt like they were in the room with me, that was kind of the vibe that I was wanting to go for. I wanted to feel like I'm sitting down with a friend and just kind of talking to them and going through my process or whatever's going on through my brain in the moment, which can be a million different things. So I say a lot of stuff that gets me in trouble. I don't really care about getting in trouble, but whatever. I'll say stuff and then it can hurt people or make them feel uncomfortable. But it's just something that I'm continuing to be more aware of and work on. But also at the same time, I've accepted that other edge of that sword where my brain can kind of tap into what I like to call the source. So my only album that I've released thus far is one that I released on my daughter's first birthday, November 14th, 2022, called The Source. I'll plop a screenshot of it somewhere over here. It was a fun project to do, to build that album out, and I learned a lot during that process. What I learned specifically, I wish I could just tell you, but I can't remember. But it's this feeling that I have that I've trained my hands and my fingers and my whatever else it takes to play rhythmically and technically guitar-wise. And it takes consistent practice to maintain that. But I've done that for 24, going on 25 years. But it's really only that I've gotten this connection between my hands and my brain. I never think of my creativity as I came up with something. For me to just sit down and come up with something like, oh, I want it to sound like, that doesn't work for me. I do know people who can hear it internally and then go sit down and recreate that. That is not how I work with any of my art. That's not even how this is working, because I'm just going off the cuff. I've got a couple of bullet points just reminding me like, hey, stay on topic. But I don't have whatever that is. For those of you who do, awesome. And for a while, I probably did kind of beat myself up a little bit, or maybe not beat myself up. I just was jealous, or I don't know. You can fill in there whatever you want to make sense for you. But, I felt like I was lacking somewhere. But through the years, I have figured out what works for me. And what works for me is I literally record not everything. I record 90 to 95% of everything. We'll even say 85 to 95% of everything. So that 15 to 5% is something that I kind of consciously do at this point. So it doesn't make me feel bad when I don't do it. I can just come down and just jam and do something and not have to feel like I need to record something. That's good for me mentally. And then I qualify that as, I call it giving it to the gods. Who those gods are, the music gods, the muse. The source is what I call it. That's why I named the album The Source. So I call it The Source, and I tap into something. I think that free writing is like a method for writers. They just will sit down and just let whatever comes. That works for me too. I don't do well thinking like, what is it that I want to write about? And then saying, oh, I'm going to write this and then write it. It has to be like just what's in the moment. And then it goes down these weird wormholes, and something usually, hopefully, not always, but something usually comes out. It might not be gold. It's like flecks of gold contained in a lot of just ore. I think that's the right term, right? And then you have to extract those little flecks out piece by piece. And then eventually you have something worth sharing. And that's actually what I went through this week as part of this episode. I came down here quite a few times and turned on all the cameras and recording stuff and the lights, and nothing comes out a lot of times. I came down here 2 times before this and recorded an hour's worth of stuff, and I got nothing. And then one time, directly after my wife and my daughter left to go to work/school, because this was the day after the first episode, and then come down here, turn everything on, and then I hear footsteps above me. So somebody has come back home, and then I hear them coming downstairs. So they're coming to see me, because why else would they come down here? And then my wife comes in the room and says, hey, there's a tree across the road, and we can't get out. So we live at the top of a mountain, and when it rains a lot outside, sometimes trees fall. And it wasn't a small tree. It was pretty big. So I had to go get the chainsaw and run that for the morning, and it was not productive down here. So I was a little bit bummed, and that's just life. But there was a number of times where I came down here and I recorded minutes or hours. I got nothing, and that's okay, because sometimes that happens. And that's just kind of part of it. It's just a lot harder with having video running. It's taken up a lot more of my brain power to say, okay, let me start this camera. Let me make sure everything's running over here. Don't forget to close the curtains behind you. But yes, it's just a little bit more to think about with this. Whereas prior to going down this video route, I had honed my process just with recording. So, cut back to what we were talking about before. The process, which I mentioned before in the previous episode, is something that I've developed over the last 15 or so years. And I did that because of that creative connection that I have to what I call the source. And the source is literally just a name that I gave it, even though I've heard it. So I didn't come up with that. There's plenty of people out there who call this thing the source. I just have adopted it. And what I feel is that I sit down and I just start going. Why am I not just kind of watching this to go along with it? Because you're going to be watching it. We're going to start the secondary video right now. Yep, I'm a human. I make mistakes. So I just start going, and whatever comes out kind of comes out. Usually I'll start with something that I've played before. So early 2020, this little riff was played a lot. My wife heard it for weeks or months probably. I love it. I haven't figured out anything to do with it yet. I do love it though. It's a very pretty tune. But I just start going and stuff comes. It sounds interesting and it morphs over minutes, right? Like I did we kind of sat through 30 seconds or so right there. That was actually 11 minutes or more, and I was just kind of playing that riff. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's the end of my day. And I recorded an hour's worth of stuff and it exists, and I save it as something that's for the next or one of the next videos is how I organize all this stuff. It is insane amounts of things to hold on to. And that was something that I just had to get comfortable with. So, making edits. Did anything happen? Yes. Then we'll save it. No. Then we can it. And just be comfortable that we didn't get anything. That wasn't always my process. There was a point in time, and I still have them in here. I saved everything. Literally. Everything. I would come down here, I would hit record, and I would record for, this was pre-baby, so I would have hours to just be down here and be in my space. At that time, me and my wife were driving into the office together. We worked in the same office. We would have an hour plus commute in the morning that we could spend with each other. And then we would have an hour plus commute in the afternoon that we would spend kind of hanging out with each other. And that was forced because we had to go to work. But we still, used it as kind of sort of hangout time. It kind of replaced what we do now, which is just kind of sit on the couch and watch TV, be with each other, which is good for us to do. And we enjoy it. But back to what I was originally talking about, that setup provided me a lot more time to come downstairs, and we would get home from work and we had seen each other for many hours already. At that point, I would be able to just come downstairs and spend the next 3.5, 4 hours while we were home before going to sleep and waking up and doing it again the next day. And sometimes I would record that whole 3 hours, and I still have those. And they exist on my hard drive, taking up 4 hours worth of space, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gigabytes each. So yeah, you had to get comfortable with that part of it, of saying, I'm just going to take up space on these things. Fortunately, these days, external hard drives are fairly cheap. So I can just have these things that hold tons and tons and tons of data that may or may not ever be used. I'm kind of overwhelmed to ever even dig back into those giant ones, the 4-hour ones, just because it was not the right process. I I didn't think about it then, but now thinking about it, like, when am I going to have the time to sit down and listen through 4 hours worth of stuff? So do I just throw it away? Feels a little bit wasteful, especially with the fact that I could just have it on a hard drive, and when I die, one of my loved ones maybe will throw it away or whatever, and that's okay. But anyway, that was a part of it. And then I kind of refined that process again and came to the idea of record something. If you catch something, and that's kind of the next point here, is that occasionally I'm going and I hit something that, like I said, this little riff I've played tons and tons and tons of times. I love it. I don't know how to do anything with it yet, but it comes out a lot, and I'll start with it sometimes, especially if I want to do some clean stuff. It's like a good diving board into just playing something. And then, you get comfortable. You start to get comfortable with, oh, there's a camera there. And then you're like, I don't even remember there's a camera there. And that little block, which is all psychological, starts to dissipate or go away completely. And then you can kind of get back to that ability to connect into the source, right? So I connect into the source, and then I catch myself playing something that I'm like, oh, that was really cool. Again, I didn't think of that. It just happens in a riffing moment, right? Tagline of this whole thing that I want it to be is, we're just riffing. And literally right now, as I'm speaking to you, is I'm just riffing on this idea. It's kind of how I live my life. At work, I just riff on ideas until something works. Down here, I riff on ideas until something works. When I'm doing a podcast, I'm riffing on ideas until something works. Eventually, something else comes out. We're 18 minutes in now, and it took that long to get there, which isn't that long in perspective. But, it takes as long as it takes. And I often recognize it in the moment, which means like, okay, this is cool sounding. So I'll either follow that path until I get a good 2, 3, 4 bars maybe. Maybe I go further. Maybe I go into minutes and minutes of stuff. The further I go into it, the more that kind of diverts into other ideas. So it's hard for me to remember, because as that idea morphs, I've not forgotten that there was something else, but I could not recreate it for you 99% of the time. Say we were now down here recording everything, and I had a friend down here who was just listening to me. And, I played that little riff right there that is simple. It's not hard. And then I play for another 5 minutes, and something else will come out after that. And that friend says, hey, I really like that first thing you did. What first thing? I don't remember it. Can you recreate it for me? So that's why I've developed this. I have to record it to remember it. And then I have to go back to that memory that is recorded in this software and relearn it. And then at the time of relearning is when I can just continue to riff over that. And then I can keep just expanding that idea indefinitely because it's captured in time. So that's the process. Is I record everything. I have a moment where I'm like, oh, that was cool. Let me go back to it and let's build on it. So that's what we're going to do here. Here's me picking a different tone. Something different. Tone inspired it. There we go. That was a big jump. What was that? That's it. That's 5 minutes right there of me playing the same riff, pretty much. Over this time it's morphed a little bit, but it's generally the same idea, right? And now I just let that idea flow into, let's see where it goes. It's starting to feel like something, right? Like, it's just me jamming, but now I'm here. All right. So this is where the fun part starts for me, personally. So I get something. I find this bit of stuff that could be expanded upon, developed, and that's when I say, okay, let's jump into this.
Now to double it.
Already, with it, all you're doing is doubling it, right? You're just taking those ideas and you're putting one track on the left and one track on the right, and it already sounds like 200% cooler to me. And it's so simple. And I'll go into an in-depth tutorial of how I do this process on a more granular level, not podcast friendly, but briefly, you can see that, well, you're recording one take, bro. Why do you have two tracks? Well, it's because with my setup, I have my guitar that runs into my Helix. Helix is a pedal board processor. It's very powerful. It's Line 6's super brother to the old pod, and we're going to call back my friend Chris Silverthorne, who was in a shout out on the last one, had a pod that he lent to me that I probably end up keeping on accident, maybe forever. I don't know what happened to that in the end, so if I stole that from you, Chris, I'm sorry. Let me know. I'll buy you a $25 pod because they're worth nothing these days. But anyway, it was the older brother to what is now the Helix, which is a much more robust, powerful processor. Super good, however, not nearly as good as Neural DSP's plugins, where I can record just a regular direct input track, and then I have the infinite ability to just change tones after the fact. Back to the point. Stay on point. Double tracking, right? I put them in there. It still has purpose the way I do it now, but if I do it with my Helix, then I have two tracks already that are in there. And generally what I like to do is at least two iterations of the same riff. If I can play the same thing pretty close to the same twice, then I just have the ability to have one that is the original and one that I can split in half, reverse it, and then I got that double take sound already. Here, this is not what I'm doing because I was just following a different process, but I didn't want to change my template. So that's what you're seeing. Too much detail? Maybe. But you know what? You non-technical musical people. There you go. Now you know something. Where were we? And here we're going to record that secondary riff. And here you can see that I'm still doing the process of playing it twice. Sometimes I play it twice, I do the flip, and then I get rid of one because I don't want it to play two times. So as I get something, especially once it's stereo recorded, it brings new life to it to me. So then I can hear, this is where I do start to not really hear it. I hear the potential for it. I'm like, oh, it has this new life, this new vitality of sound. And then I start just riffing over that. But because it's this thing that I just loop over and over and over again, and I'm comfortable with it because it's part of my process, is I'll just record on loop. I don't know, I've gone as many as like 50 times where it'll play this one thing and it'll loop over and over 50 times. And I have 50 different versions of just kind of riffing over this idea. But the way that I play is kind of a linear path, right? So this sounds like the same thing, and then it slowly changes. So what I've gotten pretty good at is taking, oh, and then right here I didn't even notice that, but there was a point in time, soloing, and Franny is not having it. Or she's half in, half out, so whatever. Franny is my dog. But yes, so I have 50 different iterations of leads or whatever, second guitars or whatever. Oftentimes I will have 3 guitars at any one time in a track. It's very common for me. So, whatever. What I've gotten comfortable with is saying, okay, I like this little run here. But then it kind of just, it gets boring because it's the same thing or something, a version of it. So I'll do precise cuts in between. I like this one, move up or down that 50 takes and find something else that sounds interesting that was played in that moment. And here, it's not a very long lead. You can see that there is a cut, and I'm not going to hide it. So for this version, this kind of quick run through my ideas, get something that I find interesting to share with you. It was just 2 things. One that kind of mimicked the rhythm guitars, and one that was more of an actual like solo type lead. And I just found the 2 that I liked and put one in the front and put one in the back, and I cut it in the right position to sound the way I wanted it to sound. In very small places, not even in the solo, but it was really just that secondary rhythm guitar. I wanted the end to sound a little different, so I did punch in a different ending. Punching in just literally means like you just find the spot where you want it to be different, and you just kind of play that last part. So that did happen. Whatever, in the moment, you're not going to know what you want it to sound like in the end. So those are the edits that you're going to have to make throughout time. But anyway, yeah, so that's how I record kind of the leads. I'll just riff on top of that. I went back, and you remember this riff that I decided I wanted to... I didn't decide it. It came out at about the 18-minute mark. Well, I thought, let's see if I can repurpose it. Changed it a little bit, slowed down the tempo. But generally, it's the same idea. And then I recorded some bass. And I programmed some drums. I did do a lot of, let me go find a good starting point for a MIDI, and then let's try and get it there. I'm not the best at programming drums. I'm working on getting better. So you'll get to follow me through that process, which, whatever, cool. Let's learn what it's all about for me. So I found a good starting point for drums, and then I shifted some to make it sound a little bit more like it belongs together. I was not even that long ago, 5 months ago, maybe even, but definitely like a year or 2 ago, I wouldn't even care. Like half the time, I hear it, but I don't really pay attention to it. It's a lot like vocals for me, especially back when I was younger. I just heard vocals as another instrument over top of, and not even the words. Like there are songs that I've known for years, decades even, that I have no idea what they're saying. I don't pay attention to the vocals. It's not interesting to me. Well, it's not as interesting to me. It's becoming, as I'm getting older, it's becoming more interesting. And I'm focusing a little bit more on them now, especially now that I'm starting to learn and venture into singing myself. I have grown a new appreciation for it. When I hear something, especially something that I've done, I hear it in the potential that it could be, which is a really weird thing. I can't even tell you, I can't explain this in any good way, but I hear the potential for it, and I get excited by the potential for it. Doesn't mean that anyone else hearing it is going to hear that same thing. So I didn't care about the sound of the drums then, but as I'm continuing to grow and become better at producing my own stuff, it is a key part of it. You don't want mixed, matched drum beats to be laying over some guitar riffs that sort of match. It sounds way cooler if they do match. So anyway, did enough to where I was comfortable and be able to still get this done within a reasonable time period. So yeah, then I took that, everything that you see there, I've cut down to about 4 minutes so far. And then we have the final product. I did very minor mixing and mastering on this. It's still very rough idea for me, but I've gotten pretty good at getting it close enough where I'm comfortable letting anybody hear it. So this is what that, not even the next day I added some little stuff and like the bass and the drums. Obviously that wasn't done the same day, or if it was the same day, it was later that day. I can't remember. Time is, and I can't remember. Whatever. It was about a 2-day thing. And then I've spent the other 3 days, whatever, trying to edit video to get it to be something to show. So out of that time, I was able to get something to share with you. And let's watch it. So yeah. All right. 5:40. Yeah. Well, that's my process. In a nutshell, in a digestible form, maybe. Farts. As part of the podcast, I want to attach a Spotify playlist to share songs that I found interesting over the past week or so. So if you're interested, you can find the link in the description. Oh, well, I think we're done now because I hear a little person coming in Just say good morning. Good morning. How are you? Yeah? Are you saying I'm done doing my podcast now?
You're done doing your podcast now.
Done doing my palmcast now. Alright, well, that was it, guys. So